The passenger seat was reclined farther than I ever left it. That's what caught my attention. I was vacuuming the car before listing it online, just ticking off a task, nothing sentimental about it. But when I opened the passenger door, the seat was leaned back like someone had been napping, or watching something, or waiting. I hadn't sat there since the funeral, and no one else should have. I checked the dash cam out of habit. Marlo had one installed 2 years ago, after some kid sideswiped her in a parking lot and lied about it. She never turned it off, said it gave her peace of mind. It was still plugged in. I pressed play. Static. Then black. Then a flicker. And suddenly, there it was, footage from 5 months ago, dated 2 days after her death. That's impossible. She was gone. Cremated. I picked up her ashes myself. So why did the video show her car driving? Same license plate. Same beaded charm hanging from the rearview mirror. Same scratch on the dashboard she blamed me for. I fast-forwarded. Trees. Highway. Gas station. Then, a motel parking lot. The car stopped. The driver's door opened. A figure stepped out, blonde hair. Tall. Familiar posture. It was her. I swear to God, it was her. She walked around the front of the car, reached into the glove box, and pulled something out. An envelope. Then she walked out of frame. That was it. That's where the footage ended. I felt my hands go numb. My knees weak. I crawled into the front seat, yanked open the glove box, and found it, still there. White envelope. No stamp. No return address. Just one word on the front. Confess. I didn't open it. I couldn't. Not yet. Instead, I started the engine. I had to know where she went. I had to retrace that drive. Because if this was some kind of prank, it was sick. And if it wasn't, then I was about to uncover something I was never supposed to find. I didn't even grab my wallet. Just the keys, the envelope, and the footage still playing on a loop in my head. The fact that the timestamp was real, matching the date 2 days after her funeral, kept echoing like a bad chorus I couldn't turn off. I hadn't touched this car in months. Nobody had. The battery should have been dead. But the dash cam had recorded. And she had appeared. I backed out of the driveway, tires crunching over loose gravel, hands slippery on the wheel. My phone buzzed with a notification from the listing site. Someone named Tanner D. wanted to view the car tomorrow. I swiped it away. There wasn't going to be a sale. Not until I figured out what the hell this was. I loaded the GPS and scrolled through the history, hoping maybe there'd be a saved route. There wasn't. But I remembered the gas station sign in the footage. Oak Ridge Market, exit 112, off Route 13. That's where she stopped. That's where the drive ended. I plugged it in and started heading northwest. As I drove, the little things started coming back. The way she used to hum during long drives. The way she would rest her hand on the center console like it belonged there permanently. I hated how easily my brain still played her on repeat, like she was a favorite movie I couldn't bear to delete from my watch list. About an hour into the trip, it started to rain. Just a soft drizzle at first, then full-on sheets that made the wipers squeal in protest. Visibility dropped. My hands tightened on the wheel. That's when I saw the motel. Lake Haven Inn. A neon vacancy sign buzzed in the window, even though it was the middle of the day. The same awkward teal color on the trim. Same cracked pavement in the lot. Exactly like in the video. I pulled in and killed the engine, heart pounding like I was doing something illegal. I had no plan. Just this envelope in my pocket and 100 worst-case scenarios clawing at my brain. I stepped out, made my way to the lobby, and rang the bell. A woman eventually came out from the back. She had a name tag that said Pearl, and eyes that looked like they'd seen more than they were paid for. Can I help you? I swallowed. I think my wife stayed here. A few months ago. I'm not accusing. Her name was Marlo Finch. Do you keep records? She tilted her head like she was studying me, or maybe recognizing me. Finch, she repeated. Yeah, that name rings a bell. Then she turned, walked to the back cabinet, and started flipping through a ledger. An actual paper ledger. Who even does that anymore? She pulled out a page and laid it flat. Room 9, she said. 2 nights. Paid in cash. No ID. Signed under Clara Hughes, but we don't verify much. You know how it is. No, Pearl. I really don't. I glanced at the log. June 12th. 2 days after her cremation. My stomach dropped. I turned to leave, but she stopped me. Hey, she said, suddenly softer. She left something. I didn't throw it out. Thought someone might come looking eventually. She handed me a key. Room 9. I stood there, soaked in rain and confusion, the envelope in my jacket still unopened. What the hell did she do here? And more importantly, with who? It didn't smell abandoned. That was the first thing I noticed when I unlocked room 9 and stepped inside. I expected mildew, old linen, or that stale cigarette odor that clings to cheap motel curtains. But instead, it smelled faintly like citrus. Orange peel, maybe, and something floral I couldn't place. Like someone had been there recently. The lamp by the bed was on. That shouldn't have been possible. Pearl had given me the key like it was some lost and found item, and yet here I was, standing in a room that felt disturbingly lived in. I didn't move at first. My brain needed a second to catch up. The sheets were tucked, but the pillows weren't stacked evenly. There was a bottle of water on the nightstand, half full. I pressed my fingers to it. Still cold. That's when I backed up. My breathing got shallow. My skin felt too tight. I spun toward the door and was about to leave when I noticed it. A receipt on the small desk under the TV. Same printout as the one I found in the glove box, same hotel logo. But this one had today's date. It was in her handwriting. My legs nearly gave out. I grabbed the receipt with trembling fingers. One room, one night. The guest signature? Marlo Finch. No alias. No Clara Hughes. She used her real name. Today, I stumbled backward and caught my reflection in the bathroom mirror. I looked like someone who'd just seen a ghost. And maybe I had. I reached into my jacket and pulled out the envelope labeled Confess. I hadn't dared open it since I found it, but now I needed answers more than I needed to breathe. I peeled it open, careful not to tear the paper inside. One single note, written in the same blocky letters as before. You think this is about you? You were never the center. Just a piece. And not a necessary one. That was it. No explanation. No signature. No apology. I sat down hard on the edge of the bed. My ears were ringing. I wanted to believe this was some elaborate prank. That Pearl was lying. That the camera glitched. That I had finally gone completely insane and none of this was real. But then something buzzed. The lamp. It blinked twice and dimmed. Then brightened again. The bulb wasn't faulty. The whole room dimmed with it. The power flickered. And on the desk, a black phone. An old rotary model that absolutely didn't belong in any modern motel, began to ring. One sharp tone. Then silence. Then again. I didn't want to answer it. Every cell in my body told me not to. But I stood up anyway. I picked up the receiver with a shaky hand and pressed it to my ear. Breathing. Just breathing. On the other end. And then, a voice I hadn't heard in 5 months. Whispering. You shouldn't have come here, Perry. I couldn't speak. My lips parted, but nothing came out. Her voice wasn't staticky or distorted like a recording. It was too vivid, too real. As if she were whispering directly into my ear, close enough for me to feel her breath. I froze, every muscle clenched, holding that heavy, outdated receiver like it was cursed. Perry, she said again. My name. The same soft tone she used when she'd wake me in the middle of the night just to tell me she couldn't sleep. You need to stop digging. I opened my mouth, finally finding air. Marlo. The line went dead. I slammed the phone down so hard the desk shook. My heart was hammering. I stepped back, trying to make sense of any of it. If someone was impersonating her, they were doing a damn good job. But why? What was the endgame? And how did they get her voice? I grabbed the phone again and traced the cord. It wasn't even plugged into the wall. That's when something shifted in me. Some quiet thread inside snapped, and what replaced the confusion was something else. Not clarity, not yet, but a sharp awareness that I wasn't the one in control here. I needed to know what was going on. I stormed out of the room and marched back to the front desk. Pearl wasn't there. The bell was gone. The lobby lights were off. I banged on the counter, shouting her name, but no answer came. I circled behind the desk and pushed open the swinging door to the office. Empty. The desk chair was spinning slightly, as if someone had just stood up. On the corkboard above it, I saw a photo tacked under a thumbtack, a blurry security cam still from a hallway. It showed 2 people. One was unmistakably Marlo. The other was me. Except, I'd never been there. Not until today. My face in the image looked thinner, tired, worn down, and I was holding her hand. I stumbled back. My chest tightened. I felt dizzy. It was like I'd stepped into a version of my own life that someone else had rewritten. I tore the photo off the board and stuffed it in my pocket. I didn't care about trespassing anymore. I needed answers. I drove. I didn't even look at the GPS. I just drove, as if my body knew where to go. Back roads, pine trees blurring past in the rain, my hands clutching the wheel like I was bracing for impact. After maybe 30 minutes, I saw a familiar turn. Not from life, from the footage. The dash cam video. This was the road she'd taken just before the motel. I slowed down. A rusted gate stood half open ahead. No sign. No address. Just a narrow gravel path leading into thick woods. I turned in, tires crunching slowly beneath me. The trees swallowed the light as I drove deeper. The road curved, then opened into a clearing. There, tucked beneath the drooping branches, was a small cabin. A candle burned faintly in the window, and parked beside it, unmistakably hers, was our car. The same license plate, the same dent on the side panel, but I was driving it. So what the hell was parked in front of that cabin? The rain had stopped, but everything felt wet. The air, my skin, even the thoughts crowding my head, all drenched in confusion. I pulled the car into the clearing and stared at the twin vehicle parked beside the cabin. Same make, same model, same exact dent on the rear bumper from when she misjudged the mailbox last spring. I got blamed for that dent for a week. Now here it was, fully cloned, sitting next to me like it had been waiting. I stepped out slowly, heart pounding, gravel crunching under my boots. The windshield wipers on the other car were frozen mid-swipe, as if they had stopped in the middle of doing something important. I leaned in and looked through the fogged glass. The driver's seat was empty. Glove box open. Something white inside. I didn't open it. Not yet. Instead, I turned toward the cabin. No sound but the wind moving through the trees like a warning. I approached the front door cautiously. It looked freshly painted, dark green, smooth, not a single flake. And the doorknob wasn't rusted or weathered. Someone had been here. Recently. Maybe still here. I knocked, gently at first. Then harder. My knuckles trembled as they hit the wood. No answer. Just the low hiss of wind slipping through the cracks. I reached for the handle and twisted. It was unlocked. The door creaked inward and I stepped inside. The air smelled of lavender and burning wax. A single candle flickered on a wooden table, and on the far wall, a fireplace glowed softly, though no one had tended it. Above the mantel was a photo, framed, centered, dustless. My wedding photo. I hadn't seen that photo in years. We had taken it down after an argument about whether I looked uncomfortable in it. I told her it was just the lighting. She said it was my face. We never put it back up. And yet, here it was, proudly displayed. I moved slowly through the room. Everything was arranged like someone had designed it to feel familiar, but it didn't. It was too curated, too still. There were no coats on hooks, no loose receipts, no half-drunk mugs. Just stillness and silence, until the floor creaked behind me. I spun. No one. I stepped back, breathing hard, and noticed a piece of paper on the armchair by the fire. Folded neatly. My name again, in that same blocky font. Perry. I opened it. Inside it said, "The truth was never buried. You just refused to look down." That was it. No date. No signature. No hint of context. I collapsed into the armchair, paper shaking in my hand. My brain felt like it was vibrating inside my skull. This couldn't be real. None of it. I'd watched her get lowered into the ground. I'd felt the weight of that urn. I'd signed the death certificate. And yet, here I was, chasing her through a trail of clues like a scavenger hunt from the afterlife. The fire popped, and something shifted in the shadows near the hallway. I stood, instinct pulling me forward. I walked toward the narrow corridor at the back of the cabin, where the flickering light didn't reach. A door waited at the end, half open. Inside was a bedroom. And on the bed sat a man. Alive. Staring at me like he'd been expecting this moment for years. He smiled. "You made good time," he said. "She said you'd stall." I didn't speak. My jaw locked, and my entire body screamed to run. But I didn't move. I couldn't. He patted the space beside him. "She's not who you think she was, Perry," he said softly. "And neither are you." I didn't sit beside him. I couldn't. There was something off about the way he smiled, like it was rehearsed. Too symmetrical. Like someone who had studied emotion, but never really felt it. He looked to be in his 40s, maybe 50s, clean-shaven, with hair so precisely parted it felt unnatural. He wore a black turtleneck and slacks, like he'd dressed for a poetry reading, but wound up in a funeral home. He just kept watching me. Calm. Patient. "You don't remember me, do you?" he asked. His voice wasn't familiar, but something about it stirred an ache in my gut. I shook my head, jaw tight. He sighed, looked down at his hands, and gave a half-smile. She said you'd forgotten. That you had a habit of forgetting anything that didn't serve your version of things. What are you talking about? I finally asked, my voice hoarse from silence and fear. He turned toward the nightstand, pulled open the drawer, and took out a small object. He held it delicately in both hands like it was sacred. A recorder. One of those old-school handheld models with a red button on the side. He pressed play without asking. And then, my own voice filled the room. Laughing. Not chuckling. Laughing. Unrestrained. Loud. Joyful in a way I hadn't heard myself in years. You think she'll find it? My voice asked in the recording. Another voice responded. Hers. If she does, it means we messed up, Marlowe said. And if we messed up, Perry gets what he deserves. I staggered backward, the sound slamming into my chest harder than a punch. The man paused the tape and stared at me. She wasn't talking about herself, he said. She was talking about you. I shook my head. No, that's not possible. That's not her. That's not. But it was. I knew that voice better than any other. I knew the way her words curled at the edges when she was pretending to be casual. I knew the breath she took when she was about to lie. This wasn't old. This wasn't from years ago. This was recent. He stood up slowly. There are entire chapters of your life that you've rewritten, Perry. You edited out the parts that didn't match your little sob story. You made yourself the poor, confused widower because that was easier than accepting the truth. What truth? I demanded, my hands shaking. That she was alive when you buried her. The air disappeared from the room. It felt like someone punched the wind out of my lungs and kept their fist there. You're insane, I whispered. He didn't flinch. You signed off on the coroner's report without asking questions. You accepted the ruptured aneurysm because that meant no blame. But did you ever see her body? Images raced through my head. The closed casket. The cremation arrangement made by her sister. The rush, the apologies, the mourning. I hadn't seen her face. Why would she fake her death? I snapped. Why would she do all this? She didn't fake it, he said. You helped them do it. You just don't remember why. I backed up into the wall, heart racing like I was being hunted. My brain felt like it was trying to throw up the past, like fragments of a nightmare were surfacing but refused to piece together. He reached into his jacket and pulled out another envelope. White. Clean. My name printed in bold letters again. Perry. She left one more note. You should probably sit down before reading it, he said, offering it like a loaded gun. I didn't take it. Not yet. My hands were stuck to my sides. Every part of me trembled. What's in it? I asked. He gave a hollow smile. Instructions. Then he walked past me without another word, disappeared out the front door, and left me standing in the room with that envelope burning a hole in the air between us. And when I finally opened it, everything I thought I knew about my marriage, and myself, started to unravel. I stared at the envelope for so long my fingers started to go numb. It wasn't just the weight of the paper that unsettled me. It was the familiarity. I'd seen my name written a dozen times now on these cryptic little packages, always in the same thick, mechanical block font. But this one was different. This one wasn't printed. It was handwritten, and it was in my handwriting. That was the final crack. The moment the mirror didn't just split, it disintegrated. Because no matter how far you push denial, there's something about seeing your own handwriting where it shouldn't be that short-circuits the brain. I hadn't written this. I hadn't done any of this. Had I? I sat down on the edge of the bed, took a breath that scraped my throat, and opened the envelope. There were two things inside. A folded letter and a photograph. The photo hit me first. It was a candid, taken through a window, slightly grainy. But there was no mistaking the people in it. Marlowe. And me. Sitting at a table in a diner I didn't recognize. She was smiling, holding my hand. I was laughing. Full-faced, open-mouthed joy. Something that hadn't lived on my face in years. The timestamp in the corner was from 8 months ago. 3 months before she died. But that lunch never happened. I would remember it. I should remember it. I set the photo down and opened the letter. You told me to do it. You said this was the only way out. That we couldn't keep pretending. That if we kept trying to be normal, we'd eventually slip up. You said they were watching. That they always were. And that you were tired of the game. So I followed your plan. I disappeared like you asked. I gave you what you wanted. A clean exit. No more guilt. No more pretending. But then you forgot. Perry. You forgot everything. And now here we are. Back at the start. You said if I ever found out you'd wiped yourself clean, I should remind you. So here's your reminder. That was it. No signature. No "I love you." No explanation of who they were. Just the raw, cruel suggestion that I'd chosen this, that I'd orchestrated it all, and then deliberately erased it. My head started to spin. My stomach turned over. I stood too fast and almost collapsed against the dresser. I tried to catch my breath, but something inside me was caving in. Memories I didn't recognize started flashing like broken film: a motel room, a suitcase, the smell of bleach, a scream muffled behind a door, my own voice saying, "You'll be safe when it's done." What had I done? I needed to leave. Get out. Run. But I didn't know where I'd go or what I was even running from. I stumbled outside, the cold air hitting me like a slap. The other car was still parked beside mine. I yanked open the door, this time determined to see what was inside the glove box. It wasn't locked. Inside was a single USB drive, and a sticky note on top, again in my handwriting. "Play this when you're finally ready to admit what you did." I held the drive like it was toxic, because some part of me, buried deep under all the excuses and grief and pity, already knew what it contained. But I still wasn't ready. So I got in the car, started the engine, and began to drive. Anywhere. Nowhere. I didn't know. But I couldn't sit in that cabin another second. I needed space. I needed air. I needed one more night before I pressed play on whatever was inside that drive. But I wouldn't get a night. Because 15 minutes into the drive, my phone lit up with a text. From Marlo. No number. No contact name. Just 5 words. "You don't get to run." I nearly drove off the road when I saw the message. 5 words, lit up in the dark like a curse I couldn't outrun. "You don't get to run." I pulled over onto the shoulder of the empty highway, hazard lights blinking against the black trees around me. My hands were trembling on the wheel, but not from fear anymore. From knowing it was time. I took the USB drive out of my jacket pocket, held it in my hand. But something stopped me. Not paranoia. Not panic. Memory. Not a sharp flash. Not a full picture. Just something soft. A quiet echo in the back of my mind. I closed my eyes, slowed my breathing, let the silence stretch. And then I heard it. Marlo's voice. Not through a speaker or a ghostly whisper in a motel room, but in a memory. A real one. We were in our old kitchen. The tiny rental with the flickering light above the stove. I had burned dinner again, and she was sitting on the floor eating cereal straight from the box. Laughing. Real, unfiltered laughter. She looked up at me with that sarcastic smirk of hers and said, "You make chaos look like art, Perry. Just promise me, if we ever disappear, do it together. No secrets. No coward exits." That was real. I remembered saying, "Promise," while holding a wooden spoon dripping with sauce. And I had meant it. But something had happened after that. Something I had buried. Not because I was weak, but because I was trying to protect her. I opened my laptop and plugged in the drive. It took a moment to load. One folder. For Perry, final version. Inside was a single video file. I hesitated, then clicked. The screen faded in from black. There she was. Marlo. Sitting on the same couch from the photo. Same candle burning behind her. She looked tired. Not scared, just exhausted. "Hey Perry," she said. "If you're watching this, it means the memory wipe worked. It also means you went back on the plan and tried to find me." She smiled. "Of course you did." Then her voice cracked. "I want to hate you for it. I really do. But I don't. Because I knew you'd come back. That's why I left this." She leaned in. "You did what you had to do. We both did. They were never going to let us go. Perry. Not clean. Not quiet. So you took the fall. You volunteered. You told them to scrub you, to keep me safe. And they did. You gave them your memories like payment." She paused, breathing deep. "You saved me." Tears welled in my eyes. "I've been waiting," she whispered. "But I won't wait forever. If you find this, and you remember, meet me where we used to dream about moving someday. The place with the trees that look like burnt matchsticks and the sky that never shuts up. You know it." She looked down. "But if you don't remember, that's okay too. I'll disappear for real. This time, clean." The screen cut to black. No dramatic music. No credits. Just silence. But my mind wasn't silent anymore. The dam had broken. I remembered everything. The reason we planned it. The people we were running from. The night we faked her death. The agreement I signed to forget it all. And I remembered the place. Upstate. The overlook above Thunderhill Lake. The one we called the escape hatch every time life got too loud. She used to say the trees there looked like burnt matchsticks. The sky there really did never shut up. I drove straight through the night. No GPS. I didn't need it. And when I pulled up to the overlook just as the sun was bleeding over the horizon, she was there, wrapped in a gray coat, sipping coffee from a thermos, watching the sky like she owned it. She turned before I even got out of the car. Her eyes met mine. No fear, no confusion, just something fragile and impossibly alive. You remember? She asked. I nodded, my throat tight. And for the first time in what felt like years, I smiled. I never really forgot.